So much on my mind, keep it all in line, juggling tasks that fall from the sky. Oh, what a scene, somewhere on this road, there is a load that's lighter for me. Show me the road that's lighter for me.
Welcome to the new parenting series, Chaos to Calm. In this series, we will look at those all too familiar family chaos moments and see how we can transform them to calm. My name is Noelle Kirshner, and I'm a minister, writer, and mother of 2 young boys. I started writing a Christian parenting blog over 3 years ago. I've published on numerous sites online, including the Huffington Post, the Today Show Parenting Team, Mamapedia, and Crosswalk.com. What is particularly appealing to me is exploring how faith can inform those everyday decisions that we make as parents. Faith can help us make wiser choices that bring true fulfillment. Ultimately, faith can help us move from chaos to calm. This series will air a new episode each month for the duration of the school year. And I'll begin each episode by sharing pictures, your pictures. I want to feature your chaos moments so that everyone will know that they are certainly not alone in the chaos, but I also want to capture those calm moments that make everything we do as parents worthwhile. I saw our first chaos picture on my Facebook feed when a friend posted it in disbelief. I believe this mess happened in about 5 minutes. The next picture perfectly depicts the chaos of family laundry that, as we all know, somehow breeds itself. The final chaos picture is of bath time. Some parents have affectionately dubbed the end of the day, which often includes bath time, as witching hour. Everyone is tired and we're just trying to make it through alive. The calm pictures represent meaningful moments. Rachel Stafford, the hands-free mama, submitted our first picture. It depicts a casual conversation with her daughters. Kristen Shaw, who blogs at 2 Cannoli, submitted the second one. I just love that cuddle. Our final calm picture is a friend's children relaxing on the grass. Somehow the smell of freshly cut grass takes me back to my own childhood. We can attempt to foster more calm moments by limiting our chaos ones. And this month, I want to focus on a particular brand of chaos that is all too common, the chaos of family scheduling. I'm going to delve into that problem and bring on 2 guests to help me talk about it. Now, to begin, you might have seen the blog post that went viral on HuffPost Parents entitled, "September is the Worst." Its author hilariously laments the rigor of September scheduling that every parent of a school-aged children knows so well. She writes, "September always looks wide open until suddenly every school and recreational sport coordinates the release of their schedules at the exact same time to test your will to live. You put on the sports, the practices, games, and the out-of-town tournaments you vowed you'd never do because you'd never be that parent. Oh, you're that parent, all right. Then you add the after-school activities, but don't forget the before-school ones too, because apparently that's a thing now. You're not done yet. Add the back-to-school nights, orientations, guidance nights, and parent-teacher conferences. It's okay to cry a little. Now color-code it by child, and you will quickly realize that unless you can bend the laws of physics, you can't humanly pull it all off." I'm convinced that this post went viral because so many parents feel exactly the same way. And while September is the beginning of the scheduling craze, it really continues throughout the year as each season, fall, winter, and spring, brings new signups, new meetings, and a new attempt to find balance. My oldest son started full-day school 2 years ago. And I've observed that there is a tremendous pressure on us parents to keep planning more and more. And in fact, I heard one pastor go so far as to say that busyness is a status symbol in our culture. And while some months are busier than others with orientations or major holidays, the stress on parents and children to perform keeps increasing. The result is that our children are statistically losing their unstructured time. One study found that children actually have 12 hours less free time per week than children just 2 decades ago. Children are losing their time to explore and decompress, and frankly, adults are too. The author of Trophy Child, a Christian parenting book, writes, "We all have limits. You have limits, your spouse has limits, your children have limits. When our load exceeds our limit, we begin to get run down, fatigued, and stressed out. I found that stress is a socially acceptable term for anger and frustration." Overscheduling understandably takes a toll, but the fact that this stress is an accepted norm rather than a warning sign in our culture is concerning. And this is especially the case when we're caring for children who are younger and therefore more vulnerable to this strain. One therapist in England documented children falling victim to cumulative stress reaction as the result of overscheduling. With their mental health at risk, children are losing the carefree childhood of previous generations. Now, the effect is not only detrimental to them, but it's detrimental to the entire family unit. Quality time together is often the first thing to go when schedules get hectic. And in turn, relationships are strained and opportunities to make everyday memories are lost. Our first guest has a story to relay about one chaos moment that impacted her family. I'm delighted to welcome Beth Breyer. Beth is another hometown TV host, as well as a Summit mom of 2 grown children. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you, Noelle. I'm so delighted to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited that you said yes to my invitation. I remember the first time I met you, we actually talked about this very thing, the chaos of family scheduling. And you shared such an insightful and important moment that was kind of an aha moment, I think you described it for you, that you experienced as a result of your children's hockey schedules. Now, I'm a hockey mom myself, so maybe that's because I,
Is it okay to say bless you?
I especially resonated with it, but I'm wondering if you can share that experience with our TV audience and just take us to that moment.
I'd be happy to. And I was that woman who said, I would never be that parent. It would never be me. And as much as I tried to deny it, that moment said, I am that parent. And that's where I found myself for years. Both of my children were playing travel ice hockey, and the schedules are very demanding. Mm-hmm. There are early morning practices, there are late night practices, and they travel. And they don't travel close, they travel far for overnights. And between my husband and I, we were both working full time. We were trying to coordinate the children's schedules. And we had the 2 color pens. It didn't really seem to help. It was right after Thanksgiving. We were trying to get through Thanksgiving, finish up dinner, be with our family. We never had dessert Thanksgiving. We were always on the road by 5 o'clock. My kids didn't know about pumpkin pie. So at 5 o'clock, we both got on the road. I took my daughter, my husband took my son. We said goodbye. We'll see you on Sunday night. Yeah. We never asked, where are you going? So we drove out to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and I got to the hotel and I checked in. And the clerk said, "You've already checked in." I said, No, I just got here. He said, no, Breyer, with this credit card, you just checked in. And I said, well, that's impossible. He said, yes. And he gave my husband's name. And I said, he's here? And all of a sudden, I turn around, and there's my husband and my son standing behind me in this hotel. I said, you're here? He said, you're here? We didn't even know we were going. Wow. So this would have been a great moment, except we found out that one child was having all of her games early in the morning. My son was scheduled to play all of his games late at night. We ended up sleeping in separate rooms with the 2 children, so we didn't wake them. They needed their sleep. Right. We didn't do any activities together. We ate with our separate teams, and that was our Thanksgiving weekend. The 4 of us in the same hotel, in the same proximity, and we spent no time together. That's an aha moment.
That is definitely an aha moment. And I'm sure, in the moment you were surprised and shocked, right? But I'm wondering, as you look back on that moment, did it change anything that you were doing? Or what would you say to parents who are in the throes of those same moments as they're looking to raise their children in a way that would be helpful for the whole family?
Well, I think the strangest thing about that moment was it didn't really seem that strange. And now that I look back on it, I'm thinking, why didn't that send out some alarm bells going off? What happened? I wish I could tell you that we made a lot of changes. We didn't make that many changes at that time. We did do some things, and I think these are important takeaways because you're not going to change these schedules, at least not yet. Check in with your kids. See how are they doing. Are they still having fun? Okay, that if they're not having fun with it, why are you doing it? See if they're having fun. Are they able to take on all that responsibility? They have to have all their homework done. They have to be at practices, and also check into their mental and physical well-being. Is it taking a toll on them? Are they getting enough sleep? Are they getting a lot of colds? Are they run down? And check in with your spouse and check in with yourself. And I hope I did some of it. Looking back, I would have done more of it.
I think you make a really interesting point, and I feel like I resonate with what you're saying from so many levels. I mean, on the one hand, as parents, we want to check in with our children, and we want to see as a baseline, are they thriving with what they're doing, or is it too much? But there's also the impact of one child's activities on the whole family.
Absolutely.
And while it may be a good decision for my child, I feel that I'm being encouraged to think about, well, how does it then impact everybody else? Particularly mom and dad in that scenario where it's Thanksgiving weekend and you're in two different rooms.
We worship fastly in the night the whole weekend.
Exactly. Being conscious of that, and while you may still decide to do the travel schedules in this case, or whatever the other commitments that families face will be, well then are we marking other time where we can intentionally be together and we can nurture those relationships? And it's all a balancing act that I think while every family may come to differently, we all need to at least have those conversations, checking in, thinking about those kinds of things. To me, I find that the hardest thing is that we're having to choose between good things. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's easy to say no if it's an activity that your child really doesn't want to do.
Sure.
Or you feel like, well, it's not that much enrichment, or it's not really, at a place that I can get to, because of someone else's schedule. But when it is something that you can do, and it is something that your child's excited about, and it is an enriching thing for them, it's really hard to then say no if you feel like at the same time it kind of takes you over your family balance. So what I think is happening with so many families today is that we're actually presented with so many good things that it's kind of hard in the moment to see the forest for the trees and really think about that balance that seems to sometimes just evade us.
No, that's true. And there has to be some balance. I know at that same time my daughter picked up lacrosse and she said, "Can I go play steps lacrosse?" And at that point I said, no. Lacrosse is a lot of fun, but you've committed to this. We were overscheduled at that point. The other thing I would look back and say, we were able to work our schedules. We went through it. We are on the other side of it. There were times, and I'm sorry to say this, that it defined us. It defined us as a family. It defined my children as individuals. I don't think I'd let that happen with what I know now.
So the benefit of retrospect. Thank you so much, Beth,
You're
for
very
passing
welcome.
on your wisdom to families who are in the throes.
Like you are. Good luck. That's all I can
say.
say.
The 5 and 7-year-old, I'm wading through it right now, but we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight with us.
Thank you for having me.
Beth closed the segment saying that she felt her schedule defined her family, and if she had to do it over again, she would not let that go unchecked. The reality is that overscheduling can actually end up hurting the very family we are working so hard to build. But that doesn't mean limiting it is easy. Overscheduling plays upon our worst fears as parents. As we look around at other families, we worry that our children will fall behind, not reach their full potential, or not be as socially acclimated. So we get busier and busier as we use other people's schedules as a benchmark for us to keep up with or beat. And the result is that we can find ourselves living with full schedules and thin souls. I believe the best way to step out of this competition spiral is to change where we're looking. If we only look around at others, we falter. But if we look up to God, we soar. Faith can help us identify what's most important to build in our families, despite what culture is saying. Protecting our children from undue stress, investing in them through quality family time, and safeguarding their own faith development can provide them with fortitude for life's curveballs that no amount of busyness can replace. Further, faith says that good parenting isn't defined by our ability to keep up with others. Rather, it's about our willingness to tap into God's unique plan for our children's lives. I really appreciate that shift because it means I don't have to live victim to culture's one-size-fits-all approach. I don't have to compromise my sanity. In fact, I believe God will bless myself and my children even more when I don't. My next guest is a Summit Middle School teacher, baseball coach, and Christian father of 2 children. I'm excited to talk with Ike Welsh on just what he's observing in the classroom and on the field, and how his faith is impacting his own decisions at home. Welcome, Ike.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here on the inaugural show as well, so thank you for having me.
Well, you're a good friend, and I was so excited to sit down with you and talk on this. And I think the first thing would really be helpful to hear is, what are you as a teacher in the classroom observing? What are you as a coach seeing out on the fields in your children?
Sure. Well, I've been at Summit Middle School for 13 years, and in that time, hundreds of students and athletes have come my way, and it's been a great adventure watching their lives and getting to know them. And I guess I want to start by saying that, a school like Summit or Chatham or nearby towns, it's an academically rigorous day for these young kids. I mean, as a teacher, I plan my day to teach and to push and to challenge and to stretch through the academic day, and then on top of that, certainly an expectation for homework, weeknights and weekends. And it's not uncommon at all for these young folks, these middle school kids, to be involved in many or various extracurriculars that sometimes run simultaneously. The whole sports schedule, where in the old days baseball was in the spring and basketball's in the wintertime and soccer's here, has kind of melted together, and there's competing desires and commitments. And there's an expectation that the young people are going to succeed in all of those areas. Mm-hmm. So the term of the show, chaos, is on point for many of these kids.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's something that certainly resonates with me. And, to be honest with you, I feel like some semesters we've hit it better than others in terms of finding that balance. But I'm wondering, in terms of what you're seeing in the classroom and seeing on the field, what changes are you making at home, and how is your faith as a Christian? I mean, we've met for years talking faith as families. How has that impacted the changes that you're doing, with your own family?
Sure. Well, I want to start by saying this whole idea of scheduling and overscheduling, the rhythm of life between busyness and rest, has been a work in progress for me. And therefore, it's a work in progress for my family. So having 2 young daughters, 8 and 5, and with opportunities and invitations to all different types of activities, I want to start by saying how thankful I am for, number one, having a Christian wife who I can talk about, and having Christian friends like yourself that we can circle up and say, hey, how are things going? Mm-hmm. But I guess I'm reminded from a Christian perspective of the importance of not just being aware of my physical energy and my emotional energy, but you said it in the intro, your soul, my soul, and how to keep that alive and vibrant for myself and for my family. And Jesus hit on it. When he was talking to his disciples, Matthew 16, what good is it if you gain the whole world, if you're involved with all those opportunities that seem so great, but in the process, the soul is left behind? And that's extremely something that I have to deal with. It's extremely hard to keep in mind in today's culture. It's just not being talked about. Mm-hmm. So as I think about the kids I work with, I can see sometimes, you can almost see in a person when their soul is tired, the brightness is out of their eyes a little bit, and my heart aches a little bit. And yet I turn that into, for my own family, a sense of, how can I make sure that our soul is alive as a family and as parents and as individuals?
Mm-hmm. I coined the term full schedules and thin souls because in my worst moments, that's exactly how I felt. I felt depleted. I felt exhausted. I felt like, despite the fact that I was working so hard, my kids were still upset, and I still wasn't getting enough sleep, and I still felt like a failure. And it's why am I doing all of this? Right. It's so easy to get caught up in the minutia, or like I said, before I sat down with you, kind of pacing ourselves amidst what other pace, families are doing in the area, and kind of miss the forest for the trees, so to speak. What is the cost of this busyness? When the rubber meets the road, especially as Christians, what is the cost? And that, I think, is something that, I want to unpack a little more. So when you look to kind of protect the vitality of your family in the deepest, most sincere sense, are there particular faith practices or things that you read that have really encouraged you and helped you? I know you mentioned community is very helpful and supportive, but just on a personal note, things that other people can kind of lock onto as well. Are there particular things that have helped?
Well, just we practiced it just this past weekend. I'm getting off to the beginning of the school year, and so my daughter. So the weekends are, maybe there's a little extra sense of depletion until we kind of get into it. But the idea of a Sabbath or a rest once a week is something that is very important to me, and I've really tried to make it very important to my family. So, for example, we attend church on Sunday mornings. We always try to have brunch together after. And then I feel as if it's my responsibility to plan something that is low-key. We took a hike in the woods. We had dinner with our grandparents, so we're not cooking. And it was a day where Sunday came around, and I felt I'm ready for the week. And if I'm ready for the week, maybe my kids are ready for the week. And so far it's been a good week, and I can point back to that rhythm. And it's hard. That's the problem, Noelle, and and I know, it's hard to say, I'm going to stop. But another practical thing that we use is if we just have a sense that we need to take a break, we'll set the timer for an hour. And it's find your own activity or rest. Use your imagination. Boredom, this idea of boredom is taboo. I happen to think that great things can happen when we're bored. And to your other point that's very important to mention is there's this social sense of, am I going to kind of be looked down upon if I'm not as busy as the next person? And I was talking with my dad about a year ago. I'm like, Dad, there's all these activities, and our girls are involved in a balanced fashion, but what if they're not? And he reminded me of a Jack Nicholson quote, which comes to my mind. It's, I am what I am, and your approval isn't necessary. And it just kind of helps remind me that it's our family. It's not someone else's family. What fits for the Kirshners may not fit for the Welshes, and that's okay. Right. And sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more.
I really like that. I think that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, even to the concept of overscheduling.
Yes.
And every family has to find their own balance. And yet finding creative ways like the timer, I really like that. To think about it, that's a concrete practice, can be really helpful. Something that I really like to think about is the story of Mary and Martha, the two sisters in the Bible, and how, Martha was the one who wanted that conversation with Jesus, but Mary was the one who actually sat down and did it. And Jesus said, Mary, you chose what was correct. Making that choice for quality time, making that choice for rest, for Sabbath, it is something we have to consciously do because it's not just going to happen.
Right.
But with that comes the world and the revival, I think, of the soul.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here,
I'm
Ike.
delighted.
I really appreciate your wisdom.
This was great. Thank you.
Ike mentioned the technique of a timer for designating an hour of rest in his house. I want to close with some other easy steps that we can practice as parents to help us resist overscheduling. This list and other steps can be found in the book Trophy Child. Number 1, leave free spaces on our calendars alone. Don't fill them. Number 2, prioritize family rituals like family meals, movie outings, bedtime prayer, and regular church attendance. Number 3, create unplugged spaces in our homes and cars for conversation. And number 4, be selective with our commitments and/or scale back the ones we have. Assess how they impact the whole family. Ultimately, I find it helpful to remind myself that my children need relationship more than activity. Thank you for watching this episode of Chaos to Calm. One thing to note is if sports schedules are keeping your family from regular Sunday morning church attendance, the church where I serve is starting a Sunday service at 5 p.m. this fall called Wave. It will have contemporary music and a laid-back vibe. Check out Central Presbyterian Church in Summit for details. The theme for next month's episode will be navigating school social problems. I will have a licensed social worker who's also a local guidance counselor in as my guest. If you'd like to submit a school question, please visit my blog's Facebook page as soon as possible to submit one. You can also post your Chaos to Calm pictures there for a chance to be on air. My social media information will follow on screen so that you can connect with me. So until next time, may calm be with you.